Hello and welcome to this lesson on jazz blues. We're into our third version of jazz blues at this point. Keep expanding the horizon a little bit. First time we talked just about the rhythmic difference between the boogie shuffle and swing. Then in the last lesson we talked about the harmony and how jazz harmony adds extensions and alterations to the basic dominant chord to expand our harmonic palette. This time we're going to talk about the chord progression itself. I know we're talking about blues. There are many progressions in the blues world, but the one that has really predominated for many, many years is the 12-bar blues. And so when jazz musicians say, hey man, let's play some blues, it's almost always going to be a 12-bar. So you have this certain framework. And in traditional blues, of course, we know that it's 3 chords. And you've got the 1 chord, and you kind of hang there for a while. Right? And then you go to the 4 chord, etc. You know the story. In jazz blues, there's kind of a tendency to want to never stop moving. So the root movement in a jazz blues is going to be different than the root movement in a down-home blues. Down-home blues, you hang on that 1 chord for a while, and then you jump directly to the next chord. In jazz blues, you keep moving and you find new paths to connect the first chord to the second chord, so that it always seems like the progression is going in new directions. So I'm going to show you a couple of the basic ways in which 12-bar blues evolves from 1-4-5 into a jazz blues. First place we're going to starting from the beginning in a way, is how the 4 chord comes back to the 1 chord. Now in traditional blues, you've got the 1, you just do it, ain't no thing, right? But in jazz blues, you've got the 1 chord, which you may dress up with an extension, as we talked about last time. And then you got the 4 chord, and invariably, the 4 chord has a connector that is designed to take you back to 1. In other words, we substitute a new chord in place of the regular 4 chord, and the new chord serves as a connection from 4 back to 1. So this is chord substitution here. So instead of a bar of 4, I have 2 beats of F7, and then one typical substitution is to replace F7 with F sharp diminished, called the sharp 4 diminished, and then that takes me back to C. Now here, you can listen to the bass pattern, which is really what's going on here, and how there's that kind of internal motion there. F7, F sharp diminished, C7 with the 5th in the bass. Now, of course, we can cheat and play the diminished and just go to a more common version of C that we might be familiar with, but the correct way is to keep that bass moving. The other way to connect the 4 back to 1 is like this: 4, 4 minor, back to 1. Extremely common. So that would be substituting F minor 7 for F dominant 7, again to create that connection from 4 back to 1. So we see how we can tinker with the 4 chord in the 2nd bar or in the 6th bar when there's that moment just before the change happens back to the 1 chord. All right, now the next place where we commonly see a substitution in a 12-bar is actually the setup to the 4 chord, which happens in bar 5. So the setup occurs in bar 4. And you see in the printed material there's a 12-bar laid out with bar numbers, so you can kind of keep track of what I'm talking about here. So here's how we do. We've got our 1 chord. Now in a down-home blues, I'm just hanging on 1 4th bar, and here's the 4 chord, all right? Again, no muss, no fuss, just go. In jazz blues, we have the 1, and then often a quick change, and then that sharp 4 diminished. Now, here comes the 4 chord again, but instead of just waiting and jumping to the 4 chord, I'm going to set up the 4 chord. This requires just a hint of theory. Dominant chords in traditional harmony are 5 chords. There's the 5 chord, and the 5 chord has this internal dissonance which resolves really nicely back to the 1 chord, right?